Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And yeah, so yesterday was an unprecedented, it was a strange and just a flat-out surprising day as Sony announced that the PlayStation 5 was actually on sale for the last couple of years. Now, I guess its real price is out, matching some of those scalper prices that we've seen online, and as you'd expect, there's been a lot, and I mean a lot, of backlash over this. There's a lot of very unhappy gamers out there. I mean, we've never really seen a console increase in price before, but there's also this group out there just kind of defending Sony. This billion-dollar organization that's reported record-breaking profits within just the last year. Poor Sony. Their hand was forced here because the economical state the world finds itself in. And okay, if that's something that you want to say, by all means you can, but that does bring up another question. If Sony was forced to increase price like we're seeing, well, that would, I guess, mean Xbox and Nintendo would be forced to increase in price as well. So what about them? Well, they've now both officially responded, and we're going to dive into that today. Also, we do have some more Xbox Game Pass games to talk about today because, as you all know, Game Pass just never slows down, and there's some pretty major day one games coming to the service sometime here soon. Per usual though, if you are new to the channel, or if you're just not subscribed yet, hit those buttons below. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification. You'll just be a little bit cooler for it. Let's just go and jump into the news though, starting off with Xbox, though I would say that this kind of impacts the other console makers as well, and of course consumers looking for a new console this holiday, whether that be with the Switch, Xbox, or the PlayStation 5. Head of Xbox, the Xboss himself, Phil Spencer, in an interview talked about the ongoing supply chain issues that's plagued these consoles pretty much all generation long. And I know that there's still some hope out there that things will improve as we near the holiday. But unfortunately, that just doesn't appear to be the case, or at least according to Phil Spencer. You can actually take a look over here where he said this. I think demand will outstrip supply for us this holiday. We'll see when we get into 2023. You'll start to see more that supply is catching up with the demand, and maybe actually see one in the store when you walk in. So as you can see here, that's not necessarily a very good sign. And again, while he can only speak specifically for Xbox, we know that Nintendo and Sony have also been dealing with very similar problems. So the likely chance of those consoles not having any issues at all, and it would only be linked to just Xbox, that to me does seem a little unlikely, especially with the PlayStation 5, which has been very, very plagued by these same exact issues. Still, though, we have seen some other devices improve in manufacturing, such as the Steam Deck, as an example. So, all at the same time, I guess you never really know, but I would go into this holiday expecting similar results as we've seen in the last few years. If you do want to buy a new console, you'll more than likely just have to be quick. I know it's not a very fun time, but if there is any type of silver lining here, the fact that Phil Spencer believes 2023 will see improvements shows that there might be a light at the end of the tunnel sometime here soon. Now, for those looking forward to the PlayStation VR 2 and seeing what it's capable of, something very exciting is happening next month at TGS 2022. Yeah, September is increasingly looking like a very fun time for gamers, but yes, Capcom is confirmed to be there from September 15th to the 18th, and they just announced that the PlayStation VR 2 version of Resident Evil Village will indeed be there, and it will also be playable. Now, this is very interesting because this is actually the first time a PlayStation VR 2 game will be playable for the public. And while most people, obviously, won't get the chance to play it for themselves, we should start to hear impressions as early as next month. For that matter, I think the timing of all of this is rather interesting. Of course, just a few days ago, Sony, they did announce that PlayStation VR 2 will launch in early 2023. And I mean, with that just being right around the corner, you would expect their marketing to kind of ramp up sooner rather than later. I mean, so far they've been kind of sticking with these blog posts, but they do have to show it eventually. And that's the thing, because there has been a pretty consistent rumor that PlayStation will have a showcase in September. Now, if that turns out to be true, maybe, and I'm not saying that it will absolutely be there, but maybe they could finally give us a real look at PlayStation VR 2 as opposed to this drip feed through blog posts. Regardless of when we see it though, I think right now one of the most interesting things is its price point, especially with everything going on right now. It will be very interesting to see the price of PSVR 2. Speaking of price point, we might as well just go ahead and get into the controversial decision to increase the price of the PlayStation 5. Now, it does seem like the vast majority of people online are less than thrilled about this decision, which you would think that's a pretty understandable viewpoint. Nobody wants to pay more, especially in these crazy times that we're currently living in. But there are a surprising amount of people out there that are actually defending this whole ordeal. I think that that's pretty telling with a lot of these people. But I mean, to them, this is a poor billion-dollar corporation that were obviously, very obviously forced to increase the price amongst these economical issues. And to be very clear here, I do understand the reasons as to why they're claiming to increase the price. Where this gets interesting, though, is that, Sony's not the only console maker, so you will get a chance to see how Nintendo and Xbox deals with the exact same issue. And will they too, quote-unquote, be forced to increase the price of their consoles? Well, we actually got a very quick answer because they both now officially responded. Now, we actually talked about Xbox's response yesterday, but in case you missed it, they were asked on whether or not the Xbox Series was also going to rise in price, and here's what they said. We are constantly evaluating our business to offer our fans great gaming options. Our Xbox Series S suggested retail price remains at $299. The Xbox Series X is $499. So here they are definitively saying the price remains as is, and they have no plans to change as of this time. Now, will they change their mind in the future? I guess we'll kind of see all about that. But as for Nintendo, they too joined Microsoft by saying this. While we cannot comment on pricing strategies, we currently do not have any plans to change the price of our hardware due to inflation or increased procurement cost in each country. We will determine our future pricing strategies through careful and continued deliberations. While the final price to consumers is always determined by retailers, as Mr. Furukawa stated, Nintendo has no plans to increase the trade price of its hardware. So there you have it. Nintendo and Xbox are basically saying that Sony, that they're on their own here. They are operating completely independent and are alone on this decision. And I mean, when you start to think about that, and I mean really start to think about that, PlayStation last generation used the slogan, quote unquote, for the players. And now here we are. It's almost ironic, but PlayStation seems to be the most greedy of the big three. I mean, since Jim Ryan has taken over, they've increased the price of their games. They charged to upgrade PlayStation 4 games to PlayStation 5, and now, as soon as they got the chance to do so, they increased the price of their consoles, despite both Nintendo and Xbox sitting still. Considering they are the only console maker to do these things, I don't think that we can say that they're necessarily for the players anymore. Yes, they make good games. I'll even say that they make excellent games. I actually love their games. I like the PlayStation brand just in general, but it's clear by this point that they are not for the players. That is Nintendo, and that is Xbox. They kept their consumers in mind here, and they were not forced to raise the price, as Sony said and defended Sony with. With all that in mind, this is certainly not a good look for PlayStation, but because their brand power, they do feel confident enough to do this despite any criticism that they see. I think that's what a lot of this decision just kind of boils down to, though. PlayStation's brand power. They firmly do believe that they can raise the price with little repercussions, or at least in markets that they have a big foothold in. They didn't do that in the United States because, well, Xbox, they're a little bit more competitive there. But with them doing this, I think that that's a little bit of a dangerous game to play, as you're basically advertising for other consoles by this point. While it's not always necessarily talked about a lot, trust is important for consumers, and with moves like this, they are losing trust. While I don't know if this will necessarily affect them in the short term, it could come back and bite them once sales start to stabilize a little bit more. We actually saw just last generation how PR can affect a brand with the Xbox One. Now, I'm not saying PlayStation is in that position, but there is a connection with PR and consumers, and Sony has done a very, very poor job this generation in that regard. Yes, they're still making good games, and that's going to go far for them, but their PR has been a mess, and they've just continuously been gouging fans for that extra bit of money. I think that might stand out for some fans in the long run, and we're actually seeing that right now in real time, because there was some reports going around yesterday of how the Japanese fan base has started to lose faith in PlayStation. There were reports going around with how Japanese fans are furious about this situation, and when you combine this with other moves that they've made in that region, several consumers were claiming that they've just given up on the PlayStation 5. Like I said, it's just a big mess right now, but kudos to Nintendo and Xbox for coming out and sticking by gamers here. Hopefully, just hopefully, that remains going forward. Let's go and talk about Xbox Game Pass, though, as we got some gameplay reveals for some major day one releases that look very promising. And then we also have a release date to talk about. The first of which is for Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Now, this game was revealed back at the Xbox Bethesda showcase, and it's very noteworthy because this is Team Ninja's return to the Xbox brand. This is the same studio that's worked on beloved action games like Ninja Gaiden and Nioh, as an example. So the fact that they are making a day one Xbox Game Pass game is certainly very exciting, but at the time that they originally revealed this game, there was no gameplay, or at least until now. They did finally reveal gameplay, and it looks both great and also different than what I had previously imagined. It was previously described as a Souls-like game, so I think for a lot of people the assumption was that it would be similar to their previous series, Nioh, but as we're seeing here, Wolong is definitely just kind of its own thing. I don't say that in a bad way either. This is actually a very good thing. The battle system is very aggressive. You can definitely see some similarities with Nioh, but it's very fast-paced, and I think that this is just going to make for a very, very interesting game. Again, the fact that this one is coming to Xbox Game Pass day one is just crazy to me. But of course, it will launch in early 2023 for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. So you do have plenty of choice on where and how you want to play Wolong Fallen Dynasty. The same can also be said for Atomic Heart. Now, you all have heard me talk about this game various times on the channel because it has so much potential. I love the design of this game and its atmosphere, but they did just show a new combat trailer that was roughly 4 minutes long. Now, when a developer puts together a pretty lengthy trailer, that does show that the developer has real confidence with what they have. And you can easily see why they might have confidence in this game. Again, the design looks absolutely incredible, but so too does the gameplay. The combat has so much going on with its guns, over-the-top melee-based weapons, and you even have these magical-like abilities. It is an RPG after all, so that does make sense, but it's probably one of the most fun-looking first-person shooters that I have seen in a very, very long time. It really separates itself from the crowd, and that goes to its enemy design as well. That's one of the reasons I'm actually really impressed with this game. There seems to be a lot of variety in the enemy types that you fight, whether that be its alternate 1950-like robots, there's these undead-like creatures chasing you around, and just wow. This game looks just so good. The only disappointing part about what they showed here is that they still haven't revealed a release date. Earlier this year, they did kind of tease that it was going to release in late 2022, but with all these delays, I wouldn't really be shocked to see it get pushed back to early 2023. I guess we'll see about all of that, but even then, it is another day one Xbox Game Pass game, and it will also release on PlayStation and PC. Now, the last game that I'm going to talk about here is a little bit smaller, but we did get an official release date. Gunfire Reborn is now set to release on October 27th, and yes, just like the other two games that we just talked about, it is launching directly into Xbox Game Pass. Just gotta love it. But this game actually looks pretty decent as well, especially for those that are looking for a cooperative game. You can play this game alone, but it does also have 4-player co-op, where players can take control of various heroes with their own unique abilities. At the very least, I think that this looks like it could be fun combining an FPS with a roguelite and RPG elements. All in all, though, per usual, you Game Pass subscribers out there just always seem to have something to look forward to. Out of these 3 games, though, I do want to know, which one excites you most? For me, it's really kind of hard to say. I mean, I think both Wolong and Atomic Heart looks really good, so it is definitely hard to say, but let me know about your all's opinion. Which one are you most excited to play yourself? Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, do you think the PlayStation 5 will still rapidly sell out in regions that increased in price? And as you can see here, most of you all believe that will not be the case, with 51% of you saying no, while 42% of you said yes. So even with what's going on, the results here are still very split, which is definitely interesting to see. I'm actually on a side that believes that it will still sell out rapidly, or at least for the short term. I understand a lot of people aren't happy with the decision that they made, and I mean, I agree with that sentiment. I don't like it either, but the PlayStation 5 still hasn't met that initial demand, and I think, at least for the short term, it won't necessarily have a major effect on the PlayStation 5. It might slow down just a little bit, but I think later down the road, that's where things will start to get a little bit more interesting. I kind of talked about this earlier, but trust, you know, that's a very important factor. And if the PlayStation 5 continues to be more expensive than the Xbox Series, you could start to see Xbox gain some ground. I mean, Xbox Game Pass has proven itself and it continues to rise. And over the next couple years, that's when some of Xbox's investments are going to start to come in play. They did invest into a lot of different first-party studios. And over the next couple years, that's when they're going to start releasing some of their games like Avowed and Fable. And, they have State of Decay 3. And, the list just kind of goes on and on. They do have some pretty major games incoming, all of which will be launching into Xbox Game Pass day one. So with that, combined with some of the decisions that Sony's making, that mindshare might start to shift if Sony commits to their arrogance for too long. They might be confident in their brand, and that's why they're doing what they're doing here, but Xbox's mindshare could gradually increase with moves like this, and I think that we're already kind of seeing some of that online as we speak. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.